The Middle East has changed in the last few days like it never changed in decades. Here's what's going on. Just real quick, I'm always posting videos here of the uncensored truth about Israel and the Middle East, and I invite you to hit the subscribe button and make me happy. Last week, we heard about the historic peace agreement between Israel and the UAE. It is a historic breakthrough, not only because this is the first peace agreement with a Gulf country, but because Israel did not give up not 1 inch of land, in opposed to the previous peace agreements. The reaction to the peace agreements from the Israeli side was to celebrate it, as well as from the Emirati side. But there is a minority in Israel that is angry that it comes with compromising on sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. And I want to expand on that just in one moment. First of all, this peace agreement is a shocker to many Middle East experts, and I'll explain why. For decades, the Arab world was united against Israel, demanding to first solve the conflict with the Palestinians, and only then they will make peace with Israel. The Palestinians knew that they have this key that Israel needs in order to achieve peace with the Arab nations. And they enjoyed having this key because it made them feel important, vital to the region, and they felt like they had the upper hand. Throughout the years, Israel has made multiple peace offers to the Palestinians, including going back to the 67 lines, withdrawing from land, and other stupid solutions that don't really bring peace. I've always said that in my videos, that in my opinion, peace will come in return for peace. Land for peace doesn't work. And we've seen it in 2005 when Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip, hoping to achieve peace with them. And what do you know? Do we have peace with them today? No. So it looks like that didn't go too well. Thankfully, Prime Minister Netanyahu has been pushing this policy for many years, that peace will come in exchange for peace. That's the only way to achieve real peace. Now, going back to the Palestinians, they said no to every peace offer that was brought before them. And it got the Arab world to start and realize that, hey, the Palestinians are not interested in having peace with Israel. Israel has been stretching its hand for peace, and they keep on rejecting it. The Palestinians force the Arab world into their own political agenda, and nothing comes out of it. So the Arab world started to realize that Israel is not the problem in the Middle East, but a crucial ally. Now hear what I'm about to say. Peace with the UAE is just the beginning. UAE Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed is not just the only one to think that Israel is a blessing to his country. He was just the first brave one in the Gulf to publicly acknowledge that by action. It's actually something that most of the Arab leaders in the Middle East think as well. They know that Israel is not spreading terrorism and murder. They know that Israel is not interested in conflict or murdering Arabs. It's actually Iran that is the problematic one. And one interesting note, Iran is actually good friends with the Palestinians. They support them in Gaza. They are always trying to recruit Palestinian spies in Judea and Samaria. So if anything, this Iranian-Palestinian alliance is the core of the conflict and not Israel. The announced peace agreement caused more Arab leaders to stop being afraid of saying out loud that Israel is not their enemy. And that's a huge deal, because for decades, people in the Arab world were taught that Israel is the problem. But we are seeing a change. Again, it's still a progress, but I saw an interesting tweet made by an Emirati blogger that said, "I ask Israelis to forgive me for hating them because I was told lies about you." And another tweet said, "Peace is good," again by an Emirati blogger, "Peace is good, but we both have radical minorities that we need to educate on how good peace is to our region." So this shift is absolutely mind-blowing. More and more Arabs are speaking up in public about their wish to have Israeli friends and peace. And of course, that makes the Palestinian leadership very, very angry, because they are radical, they refuse to settle with Israel, And that caused them to become irrelevant to the Arab world because they just don't want to live in peace, unlike most of the Arabs in the Middle East. I think that the Palestinians will come at some point back to the negotiation table with the Israelis if they want to stay relevant in the Middle East. Or the worst option is if they side with the Islamic regime in Iran that would surely embrace them, but not because they love them, it's only because they want to use them. Now, when you see Israelis, Arabs, and Iranian people united together against the Islamic regime in Iran, that's how you know who is the problem in the Middle East and why there is a conflict here. Iran is sowing terror, murder, and tries to dominate the Middle East with its fingerprints in Iraq, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, and its aggression in the entire region. The Middle East could become such a better place without the Islamic regime in it. In a future peaceful Middle East, terrorists have no place in it. And that's why they are angry with the Israel-UAE peace agreement, because they know that their time is even more limited. That's why Erdogan is mad. That's why the Ayatollahs are mad. That's why the Palestinian leadership and others, because they don't want peace. They hate peace. But this peace is literally changing the entire Middle East, because now more countries want relations with Israel. The Lebanese president said that he's open to discuss normalization with Israel. That's absolutely huge, considering the fact that a former Lebanese prime minister said that Lebanon would be the last country to make peace with Israel. Bahrain welcomed the peace agreement, and reports are saying that we can expect a peace agreement with them as well in the coming year. Oman also welcomed it, and not only that, the foreign minister of Oman spoke with the Israeli foreign minister, and the two promised to work together towards normalization. Sudan just said that they have no problem with normalizing the relations with Israel as well. That's also huge. Morocco, that is located in northern Africa, also showed interest in normalizing the relations. You have people in Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam, publicly calling for peace with Israel, such as my friend Muhammad Saud. Friends, we are witnessing history happening before our eyes. When I say Israel is a blessing to the nations, it's something that Arab nations understand perfectly, and perhaps even far better than some of the European countries like Sweden and the Dutch government that prefers to side with radical Palestinians. Now, some Israelis and some of you guys said that if this peace agreement comes in exchange for not annexing Judea and Samaria, then it's not worth it. And again, I say annexing because here's my opinion. I think that making peace with the Arab world is far more important than to play games with the Palestinian Authority over Judea and Samaria. Why? Because I have said it before. There is nothing to annex in Judea and Samaria. It has been under our dominance since 1967, and obviously we were here thousands of years ago. So this title is not going to change a lot. It's already ours. But making peace with the Arab world is changing things and making the entire world a better place, not just this region. And I mean, right after this peace agreement, Israeli companies signed a deal with Emirati companies to join forces on research for a COVID-19 vaccination. I mean, this peace is a blessing to the entire world. So yes, I think it's more important. And plus, it's not giving up on anything. Because right now, the declaration of sovereignty over communities in Judea and Samaria has been postponed, not cancelled. And you know, that is happening in order to let the Palestinians align themselves with the peace plan and come to negotiate, because after all, they live here among us. It's impossible to ignore this fact. We want peace with them. We want to end the conflict, but we also don't want them to think that they have the key to regional peace, because they don't. I'm really curious to hear what do you guys think about this postponing the annexation in order to make peace with the Arab world. I want to hear what are your thoughts on this. I know that we can expect more interesting things to happen in the region, and it's definitely going to affect your lives too, because a partnership between Israel and the Arab world is going to bless the entire world. We have great partners here in the region that are focused just like us on fighting terrorism together and making great things together. So I'm super excited, looking forward to read your comments too. Shalom from Israel.